Since Games Workshop started pushing harder and harder into mainstream media with multiple animations and with a boom in popularity thanks to games like Space Marine 2, Dark Tide and Rogue Trader, the discussion around video games set in the Warhammer 40k universe has intensified. And that's a good thing, because more and more 40k games of impressive quality are being released. Dawn of War 4 promises not to repeat the mistakes of its predecessor. Mechanicus 2 seems to be a grand expansion of the first installment. Dark Heresy will offer another role-playing experience after the stunning Rogue Trader. And Space Marine 3 has already been announced, building on the success of Space Marine 2. On top of all that, as the script was being written, Total War Warhammer 40k was announced as well. So the fans of the setting are eating well indeed. However, there is still something missing. On FPS we are neither angels of death nor a crack team of servants of the Inquisition. We need a game where we play as the little guy, the cannon fodder of the setting, in grand battles. The Imperial Guard, or something similar. Now, I'm not much of a shooter gamer. I've always been more into RTS and RPGs, and only a few FPS games really caught my attention. That's not to say I didn't play or enjoy them. Call of Duty World at War and Battlefield 1 stand as the best shooters I've ever played, both in terms of gunplay, style and theme. The original and the new Battlefront 2 were also quite enjoyable, for a time at least. And based on those games, I believe a lot of people would enjoy taking on a role of a simple guardsman, ordered to face the horrors of a grim dark future. But there is a small problem most people ignore. Warhammer 40k is trying to become mainstream thanks to Games Workshop efforts, but it isn't there yet. The lore is simply too vast, convoluted and multi-layered for people to easily get into the setting. Unlike Star Wars or Game of Thrones, there is no movie or TV series that provides easy access to the source material. The best most people can do is watch YouTube videos that explain the setting in a nutshell, listen to narrated stories set in the universe, or watch animations, official and otherwise. So, as much as 40k fans would like to believe otherwise, there is still a massive disconnect between casual fans who experience 40k through animations and games alone, and those who dive into the books and stories. Don't believe me? Look at how most people reacted to the cherubs in Space Marine 2. Total confusion and horror were the most common responses. The same goes for servitors in Dark Tide. It takes people a moment to even comprehend of what they are seeing, let alone comprehend the true horror of it. That's why it's my not so humble opinion that new fans of a setting should be given a chance to slowly ease themselves into the madness of Warhammer 40k. And what better faction to experience this horror through than the Tau? And sure, some of you are rolling their eyes. Oh, a Tau fan calling for a Tau-focused game. How unexpected! Please, hear me out. Think about which sci-fi universes people are most familiar with. Star Wars is the first that comes to mind. Despite its fall from grace, many people still think of that setting when the idea of sci-fi comes up. Maybe you thought of Halo or Star Trek. Either way, there is a general idea of what classic sci-fi is supposed to look like. And the Tau are the closest of all 40k factions to classic sci-fi. They have everything you would expect. A post-scarcity society, tolerance between species, pew-pew plasma weapons, railguns, AI drones, big mechs, anti-grav vehicles, classic-looking spaceships. It's all there. Many people accuse the Tau of looking like a faction that would fit better in Star Wars or some other sci-fi universe, and while I don't fully agree with that sentiment, there is some truth to it. However, what some people call a weakness is exactly what I want to use as an asset, so that those unfamiliar with the horrors of Warhammer 40k can experience them through the eyes of a faction that is relatively new on the galactic stage, and which is also, at least publicly, unaware of all the terrors that await in this universe. Now, to be clear, the Tau have been active on the galactic stage for around half a millennium at this point. So calling them naive is naive and short-sighted. But we can play the card of ethereals suppressing information, allowing the character the player controls to be just as ignorant of the setting horrors as the player themselves. Because here is another thing people tend to ignore. Humanity in Warhammer 40k is, well, not exactly comparable to modern humanity. How many of us can truly relate to a zealot praying to their god emperor, working 16 hours a day in a factory, or being expected to die within hours of active military engagement while being fed protein bars made of bugs, or worse, being turned into a cannibal after being served corpse starch for dinner? And that's just mortals. The disconnect becomes even wider with the servants of a machine god who are usually portrayed as deeply inhuman, with space marines who stand far above ordinary people, or with psychers who must constantly fight the lure of demonic voices. You can try to throw newcomers into the deep water, but many will see the complexity of a universe as overwhelming and choose not to engage with the setting beyond a surface level understanding. That's why the best option for introducing the setting is a Gue'vesa, a human in service to the Tau Empire. A narrated FPS story where we take part in a campaign as one of the Tau Empire's auxiliaries would allow newcomers to fully appreciate the depth of a setting while playing as someone far more relatable than, say, a Kriegsman. The entire story could slowly strip away the illusion that 40k is merely a dark sci-fi setting, revealing that it is, in fact, something far closer to sci-fi horror. We begin as a Gue'vesa who was born in the Empire, not an ex-guardsman, but someone who has known only life under Tau rule. At first, the Tau are presented as the good guys, a tolerant society not unlike the Galactic Republic, except instead of democracy, their foundation is the ideology of a greater good. We play as a new face in an auxiliary unit, alongside a few former guardsmen. Veterans who know what is coming, and who understand that the realities of a greater good are not as bright and sweet as we are initially led to believe. These veterans also serve a crucial role in exposition, explaining what our characters will encounter in future battles. As this auxiliary, we take part in several campaigns across multiple worlds, each one escalating not only the difficulty of the enemies we face, but also the sheer horror of the grim dark Warhammer 40k setting. More specifically, the horror of the Imperium of Man. Which should be fun, because the Imperium is usually on the quote-unquote good side of a narrative, especially when compared to chaos, orcs, or tyrannids. But here we get the outsider's perspective and can present the Imperium as the truly evil and horrific faction that it is. The campaign would be split into 3 arcs, slowly building difficulty while also changing scenery and increasing the level of horror we encounter. The first campaign takes place on an imperial Agri world. We face local militia and maybe a few guard units, nothing special. We deal with them relatively quickly and easily. This serves as a tutorial campaign. As players, we learn the game's mechanics, get familiar with tools at our disposal, establish relationships with our squadmates, and begin to realize that we are playing second fiddle to the Tau. We aren't the main characters of the story, we are a sideshow. Yet, even so, the Tau treat us well. For the most part at least, and we are doing a good job. This Agri world will no longer feed the Imperium and its ever-hungry war machine. Its bounty will feed your fellow Gue'vesa, living in the Empire. The sunny, green scenery of the Agri world should feel familiar and easy to understand, a small baby step into the grim darkness of this universe. The next planet? A mining world, a drastic change of scenery, no longer green and welcoming, harsh weather, little plant life, massive mining machinery, and deeply unpleasant mining towns built on slave labor. On top of that, we introduce more challenging enemies. Now there is a proper Imperial Guard presence, not just basic guardsmen, but auxiliaries like Ratlings and Ogrins, along with multiple vehicles. Larger tanks can serve as boss encounters or major challenges. We also introduce our first special units in the form of Skitari, wielding bizarre weapons and behaving very differently from the Guard or PDF forces we encountered so far. We can push things even further by introducing Combat Psychers, the player's first real encounter with warp powers. If we want to spice things even more, we can add an orc infestation, turning the conflict into a three-way war between Tau invaders, Imperial defenders, and the remnants of the ancient orc incursion, one that is steadily growing as fewer people remain to keep the greenskin population in check. This brings more challenging enemies, a wider variety of foes, and a rogue element in the orcs who can be lured into attacking guardsmen, but who also pose a constant threat that will grow if left unchecked. On this planet, we also introduce another allied race of the Tau, the Kroot. Here, players are confronted with the uncomfortable truth that the Kroot are not only cannibals, but they also eat humans. Sure, they consume Imperials, not our squadmates, but witnessing the Tau's indifference to fellow humans being devoured adds a strong sense of unease for the player. Beyond that, we also introduce the horror of servitors, allowing the players to experience the brutal reality of the Imperium firsthand, with other characters, including former guardsmen, explaining exactly what servitors are. The player is shocked, much like many were when they first encountered cherubs in Space Marine 2, but instead of rushing to wiki or asking what the hell I am looking at, the explanation is delivered organically in-game. This also creates a stronger connection between the player and the player character, since most players would react with the same shock and disgust upon learning what servitors truly are. And let's be honest, even long-time fans of the universe would enjoy watching a Tau-raised human completely lose it when encountering a servitor for the first time. For them, it wouldn't be horror, it would be darkly hilarious. Anyway, despite the increased difficulty of this campaign, the Tau emerge victorious, and we move into the third and final act of the story, the Hive world. Another drastic change of scenery, defined by dense urban combat and endless rusted wastelands. Here, we not only face the most dangerous forces of the Imperium, and experience the deepest horrors of this universe. We also see how our actions have already shaped this world, even before our arrival. The Agri world we secured during the tutorial phase, it was feeding this Hive. Now we encounter starving civilians and mad cannibals roaming the streets, introducing yet another rogue element on the battlefield, mechanically similar to the orcs, but thematically distinct. In one mission, we are tasked with clearing out a food processing plant where corpse starch is produced. It's made explicitly clear that because of our victory, people are starving. And that's why corpse starch is being manufactured on such a massive scale. We starved this world, and we turn its people into cannibals. Next, we secure a manufactorum, where we find workers on the brink of death and rows of servitors forced to turn scrap metal into new tools and weapons of war. Because of our success on the mining world, Hive workers were pushed into double shifts, ordered to recycle everything possible for the Imperium's war machine. Those who couldn't keep up were brutally converted into servitors, often without proper lobotomies, simply to meet the demands of High Command. The wails and begging of these servitors are the reward for winning the second campaign. The player can choose to leave them to their fate or gun them down in an act of mercy. And it doesn't end there. Because of our assault on the mining world, orc containment failed. Spores reached the Hive, and now greenskins can be found throughout the city, Gretchens and Snotlings already spreading the infestation. Wherever we win or lose, the orc threat remains. The corpses of unlucky civilians, killed or partially eaten by the orcs, stand as yet another testament to our glorious victory in the name of the greater good. On top of all those horrific scenes, players will also encounter even more dangerous warriors of the Imperium. More advanced units of the Guard and Skitari, more vehicles, maybe even a Baneblade, which players won't be given a chance to destroy. Instead, they will have to avoid it or escape, because with our available firepower, we'll be lucky to scratch the paint on the super heavy tank. Thankfully, there are more approachable enemies awaiting on the player in the Hive. Here the player encounters the true elites of the Imperium. The Sisters of Battle take to the field with miracles on their side. Players witnessed firsthand that while most semi-naked Sister Repentia go down with a single shot, there is one who simply ignores incoming fire, suddenly glowing gold for no apparent reason. Only a direct hit from a battlesuit finally takes care of a glowing maiden. Later on, player witnesses another bizarre event. Flames coming from Sororitas Flamer take the shape of a two-headed eagle as she relentlessly hunts the player. Other sisters may rise again after being killed, glowing with divine light, dragged back into the fight by the will of a god emperor, the very entity your character has mocked or dismissed throughout the story. 40k fans enjoy the scenes of Emperor's miracles. But how interesting it would be to be on the receiving end of the God Emperor's power and fury. And just when the player believes they faced the worst the game has to offer, the Space Marines arrive in the final mission. Depending on player choices, shooting skill and how many squadmates survive up to this point, the player and their team either barely survives an encounter with the Angels of Death, or are wiped out to the last man. One possible ending shows a Space Marine killing the player character and moving on without a second glance, moments before the credits roll. In the end, you either survive an encounter with the Adeptus Astartes, knowing full well that the war is far from over, or you die, becoming just another acceptable casualty in the eyes of Ethereals, sacrificed in the name of a greater good. That's my vision for a proper first-person shooter narrative campaign, one where newcomers to the setting are eased into the realities of Warhammer 40k step by step, planet by planet, enemy by enemy, horror after horror, until the player fully understands the true depth of Warhammer 40k's grim darkness. As for multiplayer, I think a Battlefront 2 style approach, the newer one, would work best. Different classes would form the core gameplay with special units available through point accumulation. That way, players get the chance to play not only as simple guardsman or fire warrior, but also as elite units on both sides, be it Imperium or the Tau, whether that's a Space Marine or a Crisis Suit. I'm not expert, but I'm sure this could be balanced, more or less, so that both sides feel unique and fun to play. Not to mention that with the introduction of Agri World, Mining World and Hive World in the campaign, you'd have access to a wide and interesting variety of maps to enjoy. Everything from open fields and broken canyons to towering Hive spires. The possibilities are endless. This can be expanded, not only through co-op campaign, but similar to Space Marine 2 PvE missions, where groups of players can take part in smaller stories connected to the main narrative. The core of experience should be the narrated story, one that slowly reveals the horrors of Warhammer 40k to both the player and the character they control. From an outsider's perspective, we experience the madness and inhumanity of the Imperium, as well as the uncomfortable truth that the Tau aren't as good as they present themselves to be. That should form the second layer of a narrative, because while the Imperium is grimdark and evil in a very direct and uncompromising way, the Tau represent a more subtle form of grimdark. The strike on the Agri world that causes food riots and starvation? A calculated move to ensure instability within the Hive. Securing the mining world doesn't just provide the Tau with more resources for their war machine, it also cripples Hive factories, limiting their ability to produce weapons and ammunition for defense. Later attacks on food processing plants that manufacture corpse starch serve the same purpose, cutting off the Hive supply of human meat, triggering even more riots and making it easier for the Tau to turn the local population to their side. The same applies to how our character and other human auxiliaries are treated. Some Tau genuinely care, others don't. Few express any regret when a beloved squadmate dies. Slowly, the reality sets in. You are an expendable second-class citizen. The Imperium is terrible, yes, but within the Tau Empire, as a human, you are still subservient to the Tau. Which is better, to serve other humans or blue-skinned Xenos? That's the question players will have to answer for themselves. But there is one more thing to consider. The name of a game. Battlefield 40k? Battlefront Warhammer? Call of Blue Booty? All are good names. But I think we should take inspiration from Darktide and go a little meta with the title Grimpath. The Tau believe in one path that leads to the greater good. And as the player walks it, they will see just how grim and dark this path really is. It's common knowledge, after all, that the road to hell is paved with good intentions. And the Tau have nothing but good intentions for the galaxy, don't they? Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video and my idea for a Warhammer 40k game. I believe that dropping people into the deep end isn't always the best solution. I know this from my own experience playing Dark Souls, a game that doesn't care about anything, just drops you in the middle of the ocean with a paddle and says, figure it out. I finished the first Dark Souls, but I never bothered with the others. I just didn't enjoy the first one. The grind was frustrating and I usually play games to relax, not to get angry or stressed. The plot was non-existent, or at least incoherent to me back then. Victories over bosses felt hollow because they were just another obstacle on the way to an ending I didn't fully understand. I think the same could happen with Warhammer 40k games. As enjoyable as some are, newcomers might be scared off if they are dropped into the middle of a universe and expected to figure everything out themselves, looking things up on wikis and YouTube. With this concept, newcomers would be able to share in the shock, horror and disgust of a character they play, while also receiving guidance from experienced squadmates who drop bits of exposition to help them understand what they are facing. This way, players get acclimated to the setting through the experience in the game rather than outside media. Now, this was supposed to be a 6K special, but to my own amazement, in less than a month, we jumped from 6 to 7,000 subscribers. And it's holiday season, so because I can't come up with anything better, consider this video a 6K, 7K and holiday special in one. We are going full head and shoulders with this video, 3 in 1. Thank you all for your support. I am truly grateful. I never expected for my channel to grow to this size, and now it seems we will only pick up speed as we go. So, leave a comment about how much of a Tau fanboy I am, subscribe and ring that bell. If you can, support me through Patreon. You can also donate to the Star Wars x Warhammer 40k art budget through Ko-fi. It's thanks to your donations this crossover series has its own art gallery, free of AI slop. But I think that's it for today. Thank you for joining me, and I hope you enjoyed. Now, my dear viewers and listeners, remember, wherever you are, whatever you do, try to enjoy yourself while you can. I wish you most heretical day. Ta-ta!